So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Team Vaccination Monday night training call, where we do the Associate in the Spotlight. And I'm really, really elated to have my good friend and associate, business partner, teammate, Paul Vandeven on with us tonight. For those of you that don't know Paul, he is originally, he's actually coming into close to 5 years now, I think it is, Paul, with Vox Life? Close
April 27th. Yeah, April 27th.
Yeah, so coming up 5 years for sure. So I've gotten to know Paul a number of times where he's bailed me out when I've needed product because he lives in my hometown here. So he's been able to fix me up and do some trades and so on in our Vox swap group. But Paul's background is actually agriculture. He grew up on a farm, excuse me, in Moseley, Ontario, and Paul went to school for that at Fanshawe College and obtained a farm business management diploma from Fanshawe College. But at a young age, Paul encountered some issues with knee problems and in his teens, and had cartilage removed from both of his knees. So farming was kind of out of the question at that point, wasn't it, Paul? So
the doctors kind of indicated to me that if I kept doing what I was doing, I may be in a wheelchair by the time I was 45. So change of plans.
So pivot, yeah, and that's for sure. And you spent a number of years, almost 40 years in the agriculture sector, in the insurance business and estate planning, agriculture credit, and so on. And then I know that unfortunately in 2015, a job that you did, Paul, for a long time, 10 years almost, I believe, was moved to the States. Like a lot of jobs were moved to the States, and therefore some of us have to pivot. But at an older age, it's really tough. It's really tough to sort of find that you're out of work and what to do and so on. And like all of us, at times we've hit some dark stages in our life, and you're no different. You've hit some of those dark stages in your life, but you were able to overcome. And that's what's really, really incredible about your resilience, Paul. And it just speaks volumes of the man and the character you are. And I think, like all of us, you are very grateful, like the rest of us, to be able to find the joy and the passion that we all find, and the resolve we find to go and help people no matter what. And that's certainly one of the things that you did. And you have risen from a very dark place in your life. And I'll let you talk about that a little bit. And like a lot of us, we didn't go looking for Vox. It found us. Somehow it made its way to us and found us. And a lot of times, like I was, like I'm sure you were, Paul, that you were skeptical. You were, come on, pair of socks. You kidding me? What's going on? And, we started sharing it and encourage people to continue to wear it. And it's so amazing to be able to see people like yourself that have not only found relief from, painful issues you were dealing with, be it internal personal issues, but also the physical issues, that engaging yourself not only in wearing the product, but sharing the product has brought some joy to your life. So I'm really elated to have you on the call, Paul. You've been a very loyal soldier for Vox. I don't think there's been too many calls you've ever missed when it comes to doing calls or whatever. So I'm grateful to have you here, and maybe you can go into a little bit more about your story and what Vox has done for you. And we're pleased and welcome to be on the call, Paul.
Thanks, Terry. I mean, you mentioned a few things there, and I've been lucky in one sense, and that is that even even back in my younger days when my faith was tested. There were lots of times I blamed God for my problems and realized that wasn't, that wasn't the problem at all. We come to those forks in the road where we have to decide what we're going to do. And my journey took me to some pretty dark places, and I'm not going to get into it a whole lot, but I was bullied in school. I was one of those lucky guys that when you were picking baseball teams at recess, it was like I was always the last one picked, and it was like, too bad if you had the wrong order because you ended up with me. And so kind of at an early age, 7 years old, I was the only kid I can remember. It was a 4-room schoolhouse, and I was the only kid that, and I believe there was maybe only one teacher that wore glasses, and that was kind of the start of the bullying. And when I go back, when you go back to one particular thing in your life that kind of changed the course of where your life ended up heading, that probably was one of the big ones for me, because at that point I started losing self-esteem and self-worth, self-love, and all that sort of thing. And and it didn't get much better. And then as a young teenager, I went through being sexually abused by a relative, and that just further darkened things. And everybody handles things differently. And at that time I didn't even realize that I was surviving, but I guess I was. And when a traumatic experience happens in your life, I've come to learn that a lot of times, the mind is an incredible thing, as we all know on this call. And sometimes when you have such a traumatic experience that you can't really handle or deal with, it kind of gets put back in your self-conscious, and you don't, at times you don't even realize that it's there. But until later in life, when things start coming out, and lo and behold, there's that trigger, and all of a sudden, at 56 years old, I was dealing with the fact that of my abuse, and started to realize how much it had affected my life. And luckily by then I had the tools to get some, to get counseling, and it took 2 years, but I finally worked my way through it. And and today I'm a better man because of it. And but one of the things that it did was it brought me to alcohol. And it was a number of things. First, it kind of, all of a sudden, if I had a few drinks, I was a little funnier, and I was getting the attention of people. And because of that, it was kind of taking the edge off of some of the more difficult things in my life that I wasn't sharing. And that progressed over time. And my first drink was when I was probably 4, I think, years I can remember, 14 years old. And it just got steadily worse. And it was my way of handling problems. And brought me to a pretty dark place, where at one point, I contemplated, not only contemplated suicide, but I actually had the plan. And I made a couple of phone calls to say goodbye to people, and one of them was my son. And as a result of him, talked me down off the ledge, and I'm forever grateful for him, stepping in the way he did. And but life's decisions have consequences, and as a result of all of that, I haven't seen or spoken to my son in almost 9 years. About the same amount of time that I'm going to celebrate my sobriety this May also. And sometimes it takes that it really takes that it takes that wake up call that you do matter. And you may think you're alone, but there are people out there that care, and there are people out there whose lives that you better and that you affect, even though you may not know it. And so that kind of brought me to a divorce after 28 and a half years. And those kind of things are not easy. And I remember somebody saying to me when the divorce was final, and they said, "Oh, you must have been a great day. You must have been out partying and having a great time." And I said, "Actually not." I said, it was a very somber kind of day. And we all make decisions. And I always say, I really don't think a lot of people, I don't think we make mistakes. I think we just make some poor decisions. And it's whether, it's how you handle those, the consequences of those actions that you take. And lucky for me, I ended up in the same jail cell in a OPP precinct within 18 days from my first to my second time in a jail cell. And when I look back at it, I'm grateful, because that second trip, the light kind of went on, and it just, it told me that, I needed to make a decision to change. And so I did. And luckily I made the right decision. And I haven't had any alcohol since, or nor any, after a few years. I white knuckled it for the first few years, but by the grace of God, I always prayed for the obsession to be taken away, and one day it was gone. And so today, I have a whole different life. And along the way, I've met some pretty incredible people. And if it wasn't for a decision that I made to move to Brantford, Ontario, I don't know that maybe whether I would have ever, at this point, have been, open and see the opportunity in Vox. And so I suffered from plantar fasciitis, and as I came to Brantford 5.5 years ago, I started to meet people and was invited to a home party, so to speak. And I think there were 10 people there. And there was a presentation done, and what we know today as the demo to show people how it works. And it was amazing. It was just amazing. There were 10 of us there, and not one of us left without walking out with some product. And I had suffered from.
So that's going back now almost, and thank you so much for being vulnerable. Wow, you've just got a very, very touching story. And I don't think any of us can really comprehend, the struggles that anybody goes through with addiction or whatever. And it doesn't really matter, the fault behind it per se, or whose fault. It just matters, did you have the courage to get up and get out of it? And that certainly is apparent, because 9 years coming up to sobriety for you in May, is something to be very, very proud of, let alone, 9 months, like let's talk, this is 9 years. Good for you. And you made a decision, with the help of, and grace of God for sure, to do something better. And then you show up in Brantford and bingo, you start meeting some people and off you go to this home party. And you're suffering with plantar fasciitis, and we're going back almost 5 years ago now. So you had had a better life. You were sober for 4 years almost at that time. So you were looking to make your life better, and bravo for that. That's kudos, brother. That's awesome. So then you meet Vox people. You get invited to this get together, and was this get together in Brantford?
Yeah, it was. And I don't know, there was something about this bunch right from day one that was different, because I had been involved in other direct marketing companies before that, and that were also very good, and but I don't know, they just like this. I for the first time I felt like this was family, and that
There was a
that
different
always
feel.
comes
So
through.
there's this feeling you said that you got there,
Yeah.
that it was family, and you've been in a couple of other companies now. Let's just describe a little bit about what you felt when you were there, because we are in the business of helping people, obviously.
Right.
And I'm sure when when you entered that room or that party, that they were assuming, maybe you didn't know at the time, what you were dealing with plantar fasciitis. And so just describe a little bit about what you felt was different about this group of people that were with Vox.
Well, first of all, I think it was having 10 people there was kind of interesting, because as we watched the presentation, and every single one of us got the opportunity to be demoed, and in so doing, it was the hearing of other people's stories, when they'd go up and they'd kind of say, they talk about maybe what was ailing them, or issues that they had, or problems that they had. And it just kind of, I just thought, from, especially at the time, the video that we watched and stuff, and I thought, this is pretty cool. And I was always one of those guys that I didn't like taking medication. As you can well imagine, I was on antidepressants, and they helped, but I sure didn't like the side effects. And then when I was going through my divorce, it like things were really getting tough, and they doubled the medication. And man, it was like, I told the doctor, I says, I'm pulling back from this, because this is, the side effects are almost worse than the cure, sort of thing. And and just listening to other people, and to and I can't even remember who it was at the time, but somebody was had some pretty serious back pain, and they actually had come in with a walker. And I was just amazed at this person that kind of went through this. And it was like, you could see the difference in him. You could just see, when he came in, he was hunched over this walker. And they remember, we didn't have patches back then. We had the insoles and the socks. And I remember the guys, it was a guy, and I remember him saying, he said, like, he says, I'm a size 9. He says, what have you got? He says, I want to put it on right now. And the thing that was so cool, and I think that to this day really struck me, was how that guy, he had his walker, but he went from this to this, and and again, I didn't really, at the time, I really didn't know much about the fact that it could help me with my plantar fasciitis, because I really didn't even think much about it because I had suffered with it for like probably 20, 25 years. And it was so severe that, you know, if I had to get up in the middle of the night to go to the washroom, like the tennis ball was beside the bed and I literally had to, you know, stretch out my fascia before I could even stand up, or it was just like walking on broken glass.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
So you were at this event and you got some socks
I got some socks and a pair of insoles.
and a pair of insoles. Good for you. And so did you have a degree of skepticism? Did you put them on right away? Did you wear them consistently? So let's just talk a little bit about, your results with the product, and then we'll evolve and sort of bring it into how you decided to join the mission.
Well, it was pretty simple because, all we were told back then was that, you got to wear this tech for 3 days straight, 3 days, 3 days and 3 nights. And I followed that and I did. And, I didn't notice any real changes right in the beginning. It was only kind of later on when we started to understand the product more and realize that, you got to wear this. If you want it to work, you got to wear it all the time. And, but yeah, that's how we were sent home with it. And the one thing I can say that I do remember is that it was in the spring, and there's usually a time in the spring, like weather like this, it used to just be crazy because my one knee would really, really bother me. And, it would be for a couple of weeks, kind of that change back and forth in weather and that cold, damp weather. Sure. And same thing in the fall. And while I didn't really notice the plantar fasciitis at the beginning, I did notice that I was getting some pain relief in my knee. And my left knee, I mean, at the age of 16, they took all the cartilage out. I had no cartilage at age 16, and a year and a half later, I had half the cartilage taken out of my other knee. So, here I am, 16, 17-year-old kid, and raring to go, and I had to, I couldn't. They took out this cartilage, and it wasn't because of sport. Well, it wasn't because of sports. It was because of jumping in and out of
tractor
hog pens every day. So,
yeah.
But it did its damage, and in a year and a half, I spent 8 months between being on crutches and a cane. And but that was the one thing that I took from it, was I noticed that I was having, at that point in time, I was having less, I was still having some pain, but nothing like I would normally get.
Okay, so now you've got the product, you've found some relief in your knee, and I'm sure it eventually moved to your feet, because I know that as of today that you don't suffer with the plantar fasciitis even close to what you used to suffer with. Right. So you're transitioning now, you're wearing the product. Where was the point where you decided or were invited or looked at this as a business opportunity?
Well, when I went back to buy more product.
Oh, so you wanted to get more product. So
I wanted to get more product because by this time it was probably about maybe a month or so, and I was noticing that again, it was helping my knee, and I was starting to feel like it was helping the plantar fasciitis, and but with one pair of socks and a pair of insoles, it wasn't cutting it for me. So I went back to get more product, and at that time I was invited to come out to another meeting where they were, looking at the opportunity of helping others.
Great. So you go to this opportunity, you got some more products, and you joined now almost 5 years ago. And you've been doing this on a regular part-time basis. So what does a day for your business look like? What is one of the, let's just look at a key factor that Paul Vandeven does every day to move your business, move the needle on your business, maintain or share the product? What is one focus that you go into the day and one thing that you look at every day and say, this is what I'm going to try and achieve every day with my Vox Life business?
Yeah, probably the biggest thing that I've learned through training with different people and organizations is I would start something and I'd never finish. I was one of those guys that had 15 projects on the go and none of them ever got finished. So consistency was a big issue. And so I started to do some self-development and do some training programs, and I was always one of those guys that if I was going to go in something, man, I went in like 150%, like, and while that's a great attitude to have, you usually fizzle pretty fast. And it wasn't till I was training with one individual, and he just said, like, keep it simple, like, and start small, like, don't, move, build your way up. And later in my career, I picked up the book from Jim Packard called The Consistency Chain. And that's a book I highly recommend. It just, he talks about, starting with something that, start out small, but make sure that you're absolutely consistent in that, for whatever, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, before you start to say, oh, okay, well, I made so many calls, now I'm going to double it, and that's where we usually fall down, because, we build some sort of consistency, but then we think we've got it, and we try to set our goal too high. And this consistency chain is just a cool thing where you take a calendar and, you have a few simple goals. And if you hit the goals, you put an X through that date in the calendar. And the idea is to make sure that every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, has an X in it.
Okay.
And because one of the things that he pointed out that I totally agreed with was, when you break the chain, when all of a sudden one day you don't do something, you know what, you start all over again. And if you think about it, Vox is the same way, right? We take the tech off, it doesn't take long, it's not working anymore. And as long as we don't put it back on, we don't have that consistency. So I liken, wearing the Vox products exactly the same as your consistency in driving your business.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a great analogy. And so you're now, let's talk about maybe the first couple of years that you were in business. Let's say the first 2.5 years. Let's cut this in half.
All right.
And so we get involved in Vox Life, and all of us, the field is still learning, we're still evolving, we're still doing whatever. Was there points in your time in Vox up to this point, Paul, where you may have found the strength to stay in Vox because of the strength you found to deal with your alcohol abuse? Did that help? Definitely, because one of the things that I always told myself was that, and you got to remember, my self-image and my self-worth was so low that I didn't think I was good at anything. And when it came to consistency, one day it just kind of hit me, and I thought, well, shit, Paul, like, you've been consistent for X number of days of sobriety. Like,
don't you call that a win? You know, that's being consistent, not picking up a drink.
Sure.
And that kind of changed my perspective. And I started to move towards that, you know, that realization that, you know, shit, if I could make it through that, and if I can make it through every day without picking up a drink, then I sure as hell can, you know, I can find some, you know, I can find corollaries in my business that I can do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And
It gives
so,
you that self-confidence.
yeah, and so we're slowly building. Vox has been evolving and so on. And were there times though, Paul, that you felt like maybe this wasn't for me? Maybe it was something that did that little guy on your shoulder sit there and say, you can't do it? You know what I mean? Or there's another guy on the shoulder that says, yes, you can. And this one says, no, you can't. Did you have those moments? Because we all had them. I had them, right?
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's more times. I mean, even today, there are some days you just think, oh my God, like I'm putting in all this effort and like nothing's happening, or things don't seem to be happening. And it's like, you know, I mean, giving up is an easy thing to do, right? It's you just stop doing it. And but it's that push to make sure you're doing something every day, whether it's a follow-up. And you know, for years I looked for, you know, I was always looking for a better mousetrap. You know, I was looking for a better system, a better app, a better, you know, to keep me on track to do all this stuff. But the long and the short of it was I wasn't consistent in doing that either, because I'd start something and then, yeah, I'd get a couple of things and they didn't quite fit in that process. So then all of a sudden, now the process is no good. I got to go find something else.
Sure.
And ultimately, you know, it takes some, I always say it takes some brutal honesty with yourself. You know, I had to admit a number of times that, you know, I was busy as hell, but I was busy with stuff that wasn't income producing.
Sure.
You can find lots of chores and lots of things that you need to do and say, oh my God, I'm so busy, I don't have time to you know, for anything. And the long and the short of it is that I know for myself, you know, I was using any kind of excuse I could find for justifying why my business wasn't successful.
Sure.
You know, and the first year we didn't do anything. You know, I got my my good friend Elsa involved, and she had already, you know, seen the socks and from someone, and I came in for a spa treatment for pedicure or something like that anyway, and she sees these socks on me, and she says where you're wearing Vox socks. She says, like, where did you get those? And I said to her, I said, well, I said, I'm a distributor, I sell them. That was, you know, I had supported Elsa in so many things in the past that, you know, Elsa just decided that, you know, she went back and said, listen, I have this friend who's in Vox, and you know, I'm going to support him because he's always supported me. So you just never know where the road's going to turn. And I mean, after a year, Elsa and I didn't do much of anything until all of a sudden she fractured her foot and had to stop doing her spa stuff, and you know, wore all the tech and you know, did more research and so on, and found, you know, due to the fact that it was helping her so much, that, and all of a sudden we started having our own little, you know, our own little home parties where we were inviting people. And you know, honestly, I got such an amazing team, and you know, they're our team. They're not my team, they're our team. And you know, we always not very often we miss Wednesday nights. We, and it's not just our team. We have people, we've got a couple of people that are kind of cross lines and so on, but we've had this bond, and we get together Wednesday nights, and sometimes we're an hour, sometimes it's an hour and a half or whatever, and we just chat and we support each other, and yeah, that's when things, that's when things that's when things really started to happen.
Great. So now you're coming up on your 5th anniversary in April, I believe, that you joined, but really, you didn't do anything for about a year and a bit, other than wear the products and be available, that if if somebody wanted to purchase some of the product, or you had the opportunity to share it with somebody, it was there for you. So you always had the gun loaded, so to speak. I always used to say, I always used to carry insoles in the back of my pocket, because maybe today wasn't meant to work for Vox, but I'm going to lay these things and pull them out of the holster anytime that the opportunity represents itself. So when you decided that, hey, you get a teammate like Elsa, who's absolutely wonderful, and you guys start rolling, start doing some meetings, and start building. Here we are, almost 5 years, and Paul, you're still building. You're still going through, as we all are, and we've all learned how to do better. So what's a DMO for Paul in a day? I know you got some sideline stuff with doing some renovation work and so on.
Yeah.
But what's a DMO? What's a daily method of operation that you try to do every day for your business here, almost 5 years later, to continually grow it with the support of what corporate does to help bring people back on, and the different deals. So what's Paul, for people that are listening here that are new, that are relatively new, or even people that have been around here for 4 or 5 years as well, that maybe didn't do anything like you for a year or so, and what would you share with them as far as a DMO for Paul?
Well, for everybody, it's different. The important thing is that you have a DMO, and mine, and I don't follow it rigidly. There are some things I do, some things I don't, but I have this on my bulletin board, and it's my DMO. There are 5 things on there, and there's some of these things that I still struggle with, and I need, they challenge me to go outside of my comfort zone, and I'm still working on some of these. The first one on here is like, create 3 pieces of content on social media, and I'm not great at that. I'm the first.
Paul, sorry to interrupt. We got a couple of people asking you, held that DMO up. Can you read sort of the things that are on that list?
So it's a 3-5-5-5-3 daily method of operation.
5-3.
Yep. So the first one is create 3 pieces of content on social media.
Okay. 3 pieces of content on social media. Yeah.
Then meet 5 new contacts a day, can be online or offline. And we call that the clamming. So that's to comment, like, add, and what's M for? Message. Okay. So it's interacting with new people, and whether you find them in groups, and like for myself, like I have done an awful lot with Clubhouse. That platform, I belong to a lot of sobriety groups that we get on, and we just discuss sobriety, whether it's, and that's not just alcohol, it's, drugs, gambling, any kind of addiction.
Sure.
And it's to, to connect with people.
Sure.
It's really all about connecting. So then after that, it's invite 5 people to look at a presentation. Okay. And so I put my own kind of things together that I will send to people to share with them. And I got to say, I've never been so excited about, getting this infomercial, because I think we've needed something like this for a long time, and I can't wait till I get mine and I can start using it to reach out to people. So, but invite. This is not, this is just inviting them. 5 of them might say no, but I can tell you, the more people you invite, somebody's going to ask to see a video, or your presentation. Okay. And then the other 5 is follow up with any 5 prospects. Now that's probably the DMO for the most part that I do the most, is that I make sure that I have a huge Rolodex and a lot of contacts over the years all across North America. And I try to follow up with at least 5 prospects. And one of the things that I'm working on lately is to reach out to all my existing customers and make sure, just go through it with them again and make sure that they understand how they can get free product and how they can refer to others and to earn earn that free product, because I think it's so powerful. And then to get 3 prospects to watch a video or attend a presentation or a 3-way call.
Okay.
The 3-way calls, like I always, I've been on a few, but I mean, I've always, let my team know that if you want me on a 3-way call, or you're trying to talk to somebody, or you just want someone to offer that person some credibility from the person who's presenting, use the resources that we've got. We got so many great people in this organization that are more than happy to help us, take advantage.
Sure. So that's our 3, 5, 5, 3.
Yep.
What was the last one? The 3 again, Paul?
3 prospects to watch a video or attend a presentation or a 3-way call.
Okay. Now, one of the questions that come in the chat is, what videos do you normally send a prospect, or does it depend on sort of what they're looking for at first?
I kind of have my set ones that I send. I always send the one with Dr. Mark J and doing the brain mapping. I just find that one so powerful for people to see.
Sure. Yeah.
I always have one with Kevin Dugay doing his magic with the demo.
Okay.
And then typically I will, depending, what we've talked about. And here's the thing too, like I really, on Clubhouse, like I really listen to people that that if I hear them talk about some issue they have with their health, and I know we can help, that's how I reach out to those people. And like Dr. Mark's presentations on the different patches and so on, and the different techs is always close, is right in my phone, and that I can send it, in a
Are you calling these videos? Are you saving these videos from YouTube?
Yep.
So you're just finding them on Vox Life, just on
Yep.
Vox Life YouTube, and then copying the link and saving it in notes or something like that.
Yeah, and then I ask people, and if I say, and if you like that, then subscribe to the Vox Life YouTube channel, because there's all kinds of testimonials and that sort of thing. And that's the other thing I try to do, is I try to promote that people, become members of the Vox testimonial group.
Yeah, on Facebook for sure. Yeah, and it's one thing that I think is important that what I try to do all the time is teach people how to use the search bar in the testimonials group, because a lot of people get invited in the testimonials group and
Right.
they're overwhelmed because there's close to 55,000 people in there now. And as they scroll through and scroll through, they may not find what they're looking for, but they don't necessarily know how to use the search bar. And
Yeah.
so I think it's a very key factor to let people know. And I think that a lot of times we just assume that people know, and they don't know.
Yeah. And,
That
and,
there's-
and I'll send screenshots, like I'll send a screenshot with, if they want to look into, Parkinson's, for instance, then, I'll do Parkinson's. I love, you can put an arrow, you can, just to show people that once they're in that group, just put, what's amazed me, and I think the power of that group is that, I'll run into somebody and, they'll tell me they got a condition that I can't even, I can't even pronounce.
Sure.
And I don't know how many times we've gone in and put that condition in, and guess what? Somebody in that group there's a testimonial that pops up.
Yeah, and I think it's great to leverage, people's stories and talk to people, especially people we know, leverage other associates, who we know. Karen Smith says very loud and clearly to leverage people's stories, and tagging people once they're in that group, to tag them in the comments in a particular post that they are looking for, whether it's plantar fasciitis, and knowing that we don't claim to treat, diagnose, or cure anything, but everything's worth a shot, and I think, like you had to get it on, Paul. You had to wear the stuff. You went to a meeting, and dare I say that you were going to meetings probably to meet some people, not necessarily knowing that Vox was sort of the outcome that you were going to come.
It wasn't. I wasn't even told it was going to be a presentation. I just said it was, a group gathering.
Yeah. So good for you for being open-minded to go there. So to sort of sum things up, Paul, you've been here. We're very grateful that you're a teammate. First of all, I know there's lots of comments coming through the screen here that are congratulating you for your challenges that you've been brave enough to face and overcome. And not that I'm sure that they don't challenge you at times, as they all do. I know that I have some other people that I know that have sort of had similar situations, and they say that there's times when it's tougher than others, but they continue down that road. And I think that the sort of I think that the overcoming that you did has allowed you to be a great representative of Vox products, because not only did you overcome something that the technology didn't necessarily help you with to overcome, that was through sheer grit, prayer, determination, you name it. We can't even fathom a lot of times what your struggles must have been. But we're grateful that you're here, and we're grateful that you found tremendous results with our product. You're a great advocate for our technology to share it with other people, and that joy that you feel when you help somebody is probably something that's hard to describe at times. But if somebody's on here that's new and they're just getting started, give us 2 pieces of advice to help somebody continue to stay in it, to help someone continue to move. And what have you done to help people that you've brought in that are new, to keep them in embracing the technology, going on calls, and where do you find in your timing with somebody when you want to ask them to join your mission? A couple of things.
Okay. Well, I think number one is, is create your own story. And I always tell people, listen, you know, you're going to hear lots of stories and you're going to think, oh, mine is so insignificant compared to what that person, how it helped them. And, you know, the long and the short of it is there's probably a ton of people out there that would be happy to overcome whatever it is you've got because they've got it too.
Sure.
And so don't minimize, you know, your own positive results from wearing the tech, you know. And if you're first starting out and you really don't have anything, you know, talk about somebody, talk about someone you know that has had, you know, has had the results. So that's number one. I think, you know what they say, like, you know, it's, you know, story sell, you know, that's the first thing. The second thing is that I guarantee you is whether it's vendor shows or you're talking to people or inviting people out or you vox somebody, but there will be that moment when you'll vox somebody and you will never ever forget that experience because of what it did for them or the excitement that they had when they experienced the tech for the first time. And man, hang on to those and use them over and over and over again, because I know for me, it was at a vendor show that my cohort, Dan from Toronto, the two of us were doing. And, you know, this lady, you know, her rent checks were getting returned because they thought they were forgeries because she could not write her name legibly on the check. And, you know, she was sitting on it, you know, on her walker and you know, thanks to Dukes, I learned how to vox people that are in chairs or that, you know, can't stand very well or whatever. And, you know, this lady, it was like, have you got a pen and a piece of paper? Yeah. And I gave her the pen and the piece of paper and she wrote her name and she says, can you read that? And I says, absolutely. I said, your name is, please, you know. And it was a crazy moment. Like the tears were starting to flow down her face and mine too, because that's when she told me that, you know, she hasn't been able to write legibly for like 6 months at that time.
Sure.
And, you know, and rent checks were being returned. And then she came back later and said, oh my God, like I usually have to get at vendor events, I usually have to get people to write my name and my phone number and stuff in there because I could never do it in that small a space. And she came back proud as anything because she had filled in 2 or 3 of them on her own. So, you know, find those things that fire you up and are a testament to, you know, why we do what we do. And finally, I'm going to add one more thing.
Sure.
Because there's always going to be changes in our business. And like we went through this compensation change, you know, and there were a lot of people that were, you know, they didn't know what to expect. They didn't know how they were going to work it. They, you know, lots of those challenges that, you know, they felt they were going to be going through. And I just kept telling people, listen, folks, this does not change what we do. Like, just keep sharing the product and the money will follow.
Yeah.
And that's really what I have found all along, is that the joy that we get from changing someone's quality of life, number one, you know, money's never going to buy that. But as a reward for the caring and the time that we take to help people and understand and listen to people as to what they're suffering with and coming up with ways that we can help them, I mean, that's, you know, that's just the bonus.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that to reiterate what you said here is it's most definitely develop your story, and your story doesn't have to be profound. It has to be yours. It just simply has to be your story to make it authentic, right? And if you don't feel that you have a story yet, feel free to use somebody on your team. Feel free to learn about and leverage somebody on your team. And as you said, Paul, to be consistent. Do what you said, to look for people every day that you can share this product with, and just do it every day. Practice is something that we can never get enough of in anything that we do. And so practicing the demo, practicing.
Yeah, and if you want to be credible, do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, 100%. So we're right at the top of the hour, Paul. I can't thank you enough. I'm just going to thank everybody for being on the call tonight. We certainly appreciate your support, and there's always nuggets when we talk to these associates that are in the spotlight. These tremendous associates like Paul Vandeven here. We always are able to take away some nuggets, some things that we can do to help move the needle on our businesses, and to help move the needle on the mission itself. And so, Paul, on behalf of the whole field here, I'd like to thank you very much for being our associate in the spotlight tonight. Incredible story. You're a tremendous advocate for the technology, and congratulations, man, on 9 years coming up of battling with your demons. And that's something to be very, very proud of you. I know there's a lot of people on this call that are very, very proud of you. First of all, being open enough to be vulnerable enough to people with the things that you struggle with, because we all have stories. Every single one of us have a story, and one's not worse than the other, or one's not better than the other. There are stories, there are journey, and we're grateful for you for sharing that part of your life, because those sorts of things will help the rest of us to become stronger as well, when we know that there's other trials that our teammates have gone through and overcome. So thank you for that, Paul. So
you're welcome. And listen, just before we go, I got this cool hoodie the other day, and I got to show this to you. Can you read that?
Yeah, fire your brain, hire your heart. Love it. Awesome. Very good. Well, Paul, you wear that with pride, I'm sure, and it's truly about the heart. We're a heartfelt, and I understand, and I know, and I think a lot of people on here understand and know that we are different. We are a company of family, and we do stick together, and we do help each other to the best of our ability. So thank you on behalf of the field for all that you do, Paul. And if you're not friends with Paul, get to know this guy. He's a champ of a guy, and we're glad to be yoked with you on our journey here in Vox Life for sure. So I'm going to stop the recording.